This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Today I have Tony Whatley on, and his business is called 365 Driven, which we're going to dig into a little bit later. But welcome to the show, Tony.
What's going on, Gabe? Good time to catch up. It's been a while. We've been hanging out on social media for quite a while, and it's been fun. We do a lot of interesting posts and do a lot of intriguing things, and yeah, it's a good time. It's Friday, right?
That's right. Yeah, I know. We've been connected for quite a while, and I know we talked about having you on, I don't know, a year ago, and I think our schedules didn't work. So I'm glad we finally connected. And I love your shirt. Where did you get that, by the way?
That's my shirt. So that's what I call my group of people. They're the Hireables.
Nice.
So yeah, on my website, you could get them there. So yeah, basically it is what it is, right? We try to make people unhireable, and it's not by turning them into assholes, but by making them unemployable by creating their first business or starting the business of skills to get them out of their job.
Yeah, that's what I like, because that's why I've always said I'm unemployable, not in a bad way, but like I tell people, once you make in one day what you made all month, it's really hard to go get a job. So
people don't believe that though, Gabe. They hear you say something like that and they don't believe it's possible because they are so used to trading their hours for dollars and showing up and putting their ass in a seat for 8 to 9 hours a day. And they just know that it's this linear relationship between time and money. And then you meet someone like yourself or myself that have made $50,000 in a single weekend profit. And people are like, that's not even possible. It's like, yeah, it is. It is actually. It's never been easier, actually.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I think I hit a personal record last week, and then we'll dive into your story here in a minute. I think I made like $10,000 an hour, and that was a pretty good evening for me.
That's like being a well-paid speaker right there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, it's completely possible, and so that's what we're going to dive into. Before we get to that part, why don't you tell me, when was the first time you realized that you were an entrepreneur?
Oh, this is a good one. It started in childhood. I didn't grow up with any money. Both my parents were blue collar, hardworking parents, and they always supported me being creative to go out there and do money. I didn't do the cliche lemonade stand for chance, but I remember going to buy candy and gum and blow pops and Jolly Ranchers and stuff at the corner store at the end of our neighborhood. And initially I would only buy a little bit because I didn't have enough money. And then I keep coming in there every other day to buy some more. And the guy working the counter, I think he kind of figured out what I was doing, because I obviously wasn't like a fat kid. So I wasn't eating all the candy. And he's like, what are you doing with all this candy? You keep coming in here buying all the candy. I was like, oh, I take it to school and I put it in little Ziploc bags and then I sell it to my friends. And he's like, you making money? I was like, yeah. And he's like, tell you what, I'm going to give you a better deal if you buy the whole box because I want to help you out. So he contributed to my childhood entrepreneurship. So I'd buy the entire carton of blow pops and he'd give me a discount on doing that. And he became my initial supplier. And I was probably around 8 or 9 years old at that time.
That's awesome. That's super cool that he let you wholesale so young and saw what you're up to. Because I think that's what happens is, like, for me, when I first sold something, I was like, oh my God, like I can make so much money in just a matter of minutes, and then you're hooked forever.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And so it starts out there, and you figure out that you can find the supply and then provide convenience and something that people want. What kind of progressed from there? Give us the relatively short version of the rest of the journey.
I think from there it went to age 12, pushing lawnmowers and knocking on doors, asking if I could mow yards or wash cars, and had a pretty good close rate on those kind of things because I didn't charge a lot. I think I was charging $20 for a front and backyard back then. And this is a long time ago, but that was pretty quick money. It would only take me maybe an hour and a half. So I was making essentially $15 an hour as a preteen. And nowadays we're like seeing all these fast food things talking about making $15 an hour. I was like, guys, I did that as a preteen 30 something years ago. And you guys are just now catching up. It's like, take some more accountability, make yourself more creative, go do something that's going to get you out of those minimum wage jobs. My very first job was McDonald's. I was making $3.12 an hour as a waiter. I mean, I get it. I've worked those jobs, but I didn't look at those as career paths. I looked at those as a temporary job to do something and actually learn some practical skills. I learned something from every job I've ever had, even that McDonald's job, two years working at the number one franchise in the world that has systems and processes and all these different training things like well lined out. I wasn't that high school kid that was complaining about my job. I was actually paying attention and looking around and seeing how they did things. And the funny thing is, a lot of things I learned in those jobs applied to small businesses or even my career later on at major companies with major money. So things, don't take things for granted. If you don't like your job right now, maybe there's some things you can learn from this.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely noticed that. It stood out to me when you kind of shared a little bit of your background when you were booking the show, that if I feel like a ton of your success has come from exactly what you just said, of finding a job that you can learn something from, growing from that, and growing businesses on the side. And I think that's an important message that I want to dive into more, because people think that there's only one way to be an entrepreneur, and then they do it the wrong way. Like, and I have done, which I always tell people, don't do this, because there's a lot better ways. And I think you've taken the better path. I have, for the couple times I was employed, I didn't like it. And I just quit. And I had no safety net. I had no plan. I just couldn't stand it. And so then it was really hard to build up a business and income and survive. And that's like the foolish way to do it. I got through it, but that's not the only path, right? Some people say, oh yeah, I quit my job and built this. That creates such pressure that it's not always positive. Whereas what you've done is, like, you've learned incredible skills and built your businesses. So you talked about how you built up the LS1 Tech business. Talk to us about that, because if I remember right, that you built that while you were working, right? It's not like you quit your job to build that.
Yeah. Nowadays, Gabe, people introduce me as a side hustle millionaire because that is a true story. It's the book that I wrote, the title of the book, but it became a title that I had to grow into, because honestly, that title is, it's a hook, it's grabbing, and it's very, wow, I want to make millions of dollars as a side business, but I did that. That's actually my real story.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when that title came out, it took me a couple months to finally just realize that that is my story, and that I was so worried about critics and people saying negative things or, rolling their eyes. And I didn't need any of that, but I realized that that is my story. And if you look at those two words, side hustle and millionaire, there's nothing to dispute there if you have the proof to do that. So I grew into that role. And to go on that backstory of where that became from, you mentioned LS1 Tech. That was the online community that I started in 2001, and it became the largest General Motors performance community on the internet with over 300,000 members now. When we sold it in 2007, 2008 transition, that was maybe around 200,000 members, approaching that mark. But to the guys, it's still the number one site on the internet. We built an amazing product that's still existing for almost 20 years now. That's a testament to what we built and the momentum that we put behind it, and the culture that we instilled in the right staff, and just building it the right way. We treated it as a professional business, even though that most people think as a hobby. I think that's one of the major fallacies or the major limitation or limiting factors that most people have, is that they look at a side business or what we call a side hustle, and they automatically think that means side money or side effort or side professionalism. Like, you just treat it like a hobby. And I'll tell you, if you do that, you're only going to get hobby results. People like me that want to add a level of professionalism and actually treat it like a legit business, even though it's a fledgling and it's not really making any money at the time, you have to treat it with the respect that you want to get the result out of. So most people fail at doing that. They go, hey, you know what? I'm going to do a side business. And they got a job that they're not really happy with, and they're doing something they don't really enjoy. And they just look for these little side things that are really distractions to supplement their income. That's all they really think about. I just want to supplement my income. I just want to make a few $100s a month. I just want to make an extra $1,000 a month. Like, guys, you guys are thinking way too small. And when I started to think about the coaching and expanding my message to get it out there, reach more people, I read a few of those books. I read the side hustle books. I read the, 99 things you can start for $100 and those kind of books. And I was looking at these books really objectively to maybe learn something from them. And then honestly, I was horrified by all the stuff that was being put out there, because it was training people to think too damn small. And I said, this is not good stuff here. You're training people to read your book to make an extra $200 a month. I get it. If you're struggling right now, $200 a month is a lot of money. I get that. I've been there before. I've been broke, but I don't think that's a good way to teach people in their mindset and condition them to believe that there's some kind of an artificial ceiling that's going to limit what they can actually earn. And all these books out there, the whole side hustle space, there's side hustle podcasts, there's a lot of stuff out there teaching people how to do little widgets and trinkets and little low dollar items that they're going to have to hand build for hours and hours at the kitchen table when they get off their normal job. Guys, that doesn't get you very far. So I said, you know what? It's my duty as someone that actually has created successful businesses multiple times that make multiple six figures per year with 1 hour per day. I needed to get that kind of information, that mindset out there into the world. And really in 2015 is when I started to make that shift. But it wasn't until 2017 that I finally showed up on the scene and said, guys, I'm going to teach you how I did this. Like everybody keeps asking me privately, but I'm just going to start being more open with my story. And look at where it's blown up to now. People are like, dude, you're the side hustle millionaire. It's like, I get it, because there's other side hustle authors and podcasters and coaches. They haven't done what I've done. And I'm bold enough to tell them that they haven't done what I've done. They're still teaching people to make $1,000 a month.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, you're totally right. I mean, even at $1,000 a month, which is not nothing, it still doesn't change your situation. You're not going to quit your job. I mean, or at least you shouldn't, you know, if that's all you can get out of it. And I think you said something really interesting that I wanted to touch on too. You said, you know, that you've built these businesses with like an hour a day. And I think that one of the things that I continue to try to explore and even, you know, learn more about and do better in myself, even though, you know, I founded our companies and I'm a full entrepreneur, is that, you know, if you compress your time in the right way, then you'll do the right work. And if you give yourself all this extra time, you'll just do stupid shit you shouldn't be doing anyway. Some of my most profitable and high growth years were when I forced myself to only work 4 days a week, because I was like, I'm taking a long weekend every weekend. My son was super young. I had just gotten, you know, split up with his mom, and it's like, I don't care about anything more than spending time with him. And so I'm just going to work 4 days a week and I'll figure it out. It doesn't matter to me what happens. And it was crazy because that made me even more focused. And I don't think I've even scratched on what you've done in that area. So can you talk to people about how you can make a huge impact in a small amount of time? Because that's clearly, in my view, and you're the expert, the only way that you can be a millionaire side hustle guy. You can't work 80 hours on your side hustle and 40, 50 hours on your job, right? You'll die. So what does that look like?
So the first thing that you have to do is rid yourself of the employee mindset. And the biggest anchor that we see in that is time is money. Money is time. We grow up hearing that stupid phrase. It's a fallacy. It doesn't even exist in 2020 and beyond. And people need to get over that, because we learned that from our baby boomer parents and our generations above, who showed up 8 to 5 every day, clocking in and out, showing up, trading their time for hours, and thinking that if you wanted to double your income, you had to double your hours. People still believe that way because they're embedded into these kind of businesses and job occupations that keep them in that kind of hamster wheel that never ends. So right. When you get into entrepreneurship, you start to realize, how can I monetize or capitalize on other people's time, or how do I compress my own time? And when you start to realize that time is not equal to money, and that phrase is really just a bunch of BS that's been propagated by people who are employees, you start to realize, like, wait a minute, I can make money while I'm sleeping. I can make money while I'm on vacation. I can make money while I'm speaking to you, Gabe, on your show right now, because I am. And it's possible. I don't have to be somewhere. I don't have to be looking at a supervisor that's looking down condescendingly on me, or, you know, being controlling or passive aggressive against me. I can actually be making money without them. And most people don't realize that until they get into entrepreneurship and they learn how to compress time. And here's the tip that most people really fail at. Even some low-level entrepreneurs who are just trying to figure this out, they don't use a schedule, man. They don't work from a calendar. They don't do anything. The entry level is they'll do a to-do list. They'll just brain dump and they'll put a to-do list out there and cross off tasks. But here's the thing that we find, that a lot of people do that with to-do lists, because employees still do to-do lists. Sometimes they'll accomplish something that really doesn't move the needle towards their progress, and they'll go to their to-do list and write it on there just to cross it out. And it's like, why did you do that? I've done that before myself. I've caught myself doing that. It's like, wow, why am I writing something on my to-do list that I've already done just to cross it out? Well, it's because it's a reward system. You're getting an endorphin release, chemical release in your body that you've accomplished something, regardless if it actually got you closer to your goal or not. You just want to go, hey, I did a task and I'm great. It's a productive day, but that's where you're wrong. because
Yeah.
being busy is not being productive. And when you start to become more organized with your time, you work from a calendar. And I'm not talking about some fancy calendar. You can use Gmail calendar. That's what I use. It integrates with a lot of apps. It's very useful. It's on your phone, so you always have it. So when someone's on, hey, would you like to go do something on Friday? I can pull out my phone and go, psh, 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 man, I'm booked. But we can do something 2 Fridays from now. Put it on your calendar. You need to be able to schedule your social time, your productivity time, and also be able to guard those moments of your day that you find that you're most mentally aware. So that's another thing we can get into. We talk about routines.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will read books like Hal Elrod's book, Miracle Morning, great book, world national bestseller. But a lot of times that book, people think it's gospel. They think, oh, I need to get up in the morning early and I need to meditate and I need to be doing my gratitude journal and then I need to exercise. Like, no, guys, that's nonsense. Total nonsense. We're all different human beings. We all have different circadian clocks and clocks that go through your entire day. So we need to understand that we're all different. Some people are night owls. I operate mentally. They're wired at nighttime. Some people are morning people. I'm a morning person. So I get up at 5 in the morning, and between 5:30 and noon, I'm like on fire mentally. So I learned to guard that time to do productive work, whether that's creating content or writing a book or anything that requires brain power, anything that's analytical that requires detail. I'm going to do that in the morning. So when I know that that's my strongest point of the day, I guard that time to be able to do that kind of work. It would make no sense for me to go be physical and be fit and doing out there deadlifts and all this crazy stuff when I'm wasting that time that I know that I'm mentally strong. So I use that time in the late evenings to go work out when I'm brain dead, and I can go be physical because I don't have to think anymore. So learn, especially all of you that have been on quarantine and you've been working from home, guarantee that you started to realize what part of the days that you function very well at. And some of the days you're just kind of draining by that time. Rearrange your calendar to be productive when you have a productive mindset, because that's so important and most people miss that.
Yeah, that's absolutely key. And I totally agree too, because like I read Miracle Morning and love the concepts in there. And you're right, people take it as like verbatim. That's the only way to do it. And for me, I totally agree. My calendar is my playbook. So like everything from personal to notes to all my business stuff to obviously, podcast shows like this, it's all there. And that way I can wake up in the morning and look at, what I need to do. I can look at it the night before and I have my whole strategy planned out. And the other thing I'll point out that at least for me has been the case is I actually shift periodically every year or two, or sometimes even as short as like 6 to 8 months. I'll switch from where I'm getting up super early, 4:35 in the morning, and that's my super productive time, to I'll swing to a completely different cycle. Like right now, I'm on a cycle where I work till 1 or 2 in the morning, and then, and that's my most quiet, productive time. And so I want to point that out for people too, because there's a good chance that something you've done that's worked for a while may change, and something's changed in your life or schedule or physically. As we get older, we change, right? We're not as young as and powerful as we were in our 20s maybe. And it's like that stuff can shift. And so your body may change it. And then for me also, and I'm sure this has been probably true for you as well, Tony, is like there's different business seasons that change. And so about every 90 days, I completely re-strategize my calendar, because there's not enough, like nothing that's working today in business will be the same in 3 or 4 months in my view. And so like I'll rechange my focus blocks, or I'll block out more time to solve a project. I don't ever let that stay static, because I think it's dangerous.
That's a good analysis. I think you should probably go through. I've not done that, but I think I just evolve as I go. And sometimes you figure out your boundaries are a little bit different than when you first start some project. Maybe you're working with clients and you said, you know what? One of my non-negotiables, I don't want to work on Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays. So you can structure, like you said, going to a 4-day work week if that's required. And nobody's going to really see a drop in service because you're still providing that stuff. So that's another thing I think of people about is they take in these fallacies. People take their corporate fallacies with them when they go into entrepreneurship. So think about that. We work at a job that's 8 to 5, and then we think, okay, we're going to go start a business. And for some reason you think that those are professional big boy business hours. So I'm going to go create a business that's 8 to 5. We're on a world economy. Like when you think about time zones, like, as long as you're providing the service and you have some level of accessibility that's required maybe once a day, it doesn't need to be there for 8 to 5. Unless you're at a storefront, those people are conditioned locally to walk in your front door between 8 and 5. Any online business, that goes out the window, because you can have clients all over the world that are on different time zones. And that's actually awesome. So you may actually find that you want to have a business that starts at 8 p.m. and ends at 5 a.m. if you're a night owl, because you know what, you're still going to have clients and customers that are okay with that. So don't take the corporate fallacies with you into entrepreneurship. And here's another one that I like to teach people, is we talked about gaming the system, or how to, energize, or we feel a slump in energy during the day. Go take a nap. Go take a nap. I'll tell you that one of the things that I struggled with when I first started working from home full time is that I'd get tired, like most people, between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. And then I would struggle because that ego or that pride or that fear of reprimanding from your corporate background is like, oh, you shouldn't take a nap. Or maybe it's your dad or mom, like, naps are for lazy people. You should work really hard all the time. And you take these things that you've been programmed with subconsciously with you into the entrepreneurship phase. And then you start realizing all these progressive companies that are doing things out of the box, like Google and some of the other large corporations, actually have nap rooms and nap pods to get enhanced productivity from their employees. And it's proven results, because here's what I learned is that, I could be drowsy and I could try to get through that day, that 1 to 3 hour period. And you're going to look back at those times of the day and you're going, I don't even remember what I read. I don't even remember what I did. What did I do the last 3 hours? Like, it's time warp happens to you. And you go, you know what? Next time I feel like that, I'm just going to go lay down for 30 minutes and set an alarm so you don't crash out for 3-4 hours, but go set an alarm. 30, 45 minutes is all you need. And guess what? When you wake up from a short nap like that, your mind is on fire again, much like when you just got up in the morning, and you're going to actually have a more productive 3-hour span. So you can struggle for 3 hours and not be really productive, or you could sacrifice a 30-minute nap and come back and get 2.5 hours of productivity on the back end. That's a hack that most people don't think about because of the ego stuff. Like, oh, taking a nap is lazy and taking a nap is just terrible. Like, get rid of that mindset, guys. It doesn't serve you. That's the whole corporate hour structure, and the lack of taking breaks. It's a bunch of bull crap.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like, I've always known that and kind of tested and adjusted over the years, but I actually read it, and it sounds like you probably read this or you read The Power of When. And it's a really cool book that talks about different circadian rhythms for, different people. And yeah, it makes a huge difference. I'll finish up like towards the end of the day where I know like I got some stuff I need to knock out at night. I'll go lay around, watch TV, relax, maybe even snooze. And then for me right now, the season I'm in, like by like 9:30 or 10, I'm wide awake. Sometimes I'll, work out, take a shower, and then work for 3 or 4 hours, and it's peace and quiet, and I accomplish a ton. So to bring a little more clarity to this, because I think this is super important, and I love that you share this with people. So clearly you don't measure your day by how many hours you put in. Right. So how should an entrepreneur and a young entrepreneur, or somebody that's trying to build their side hustle, like how do you measure success of your day? Right.
I think the overwhelm and the anxiety comes from looking at the mountain of tasks that we need to do to improve our business. Mm-hmm. And one of the best books is The One Thing by Gary Keller, Jay Papasan. They talk about priority versus priorities, because a lot of people use that phrase, I've got priorities, and they make their to-do list and they got all this stuff that's really overwhelming. But the problem is there's really only one thing on that big list, or whatever your list is, that is actually your priority, singular. And when you start to identify what that is, you put more focus on that. And here's the answer to that question, because most people go, well, I don't know what my priority is. Well, yeah, you do. You're just not willing to admit it. Typically, it's the one task that is on that list that is going to move your needle closer to the success gauge. If you had a gauge and you see the little needle sweeping, and that one task is going to move the needle the most for that day. Because a lot of times we tend to work on the things that we want to work on, but not the things that we should work on. That's employee mindset again. That's creeping in that 8 hours. Oh, I'm watching the clock over here on the wall, and I got to fill 8 hours. Like, I can just do these little tasks right here and it'll make the day go by fast. And, that's the employee mindset. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, you have to take a more priority mindset and go, what is the one task on that list, regardless of what that clock says, that I need to somewhat do today or try to complete today, because that's going to move me one big step closer to the goal instead of these 10 little things that I'm going to go, oh, I was so busy today, it must have been a great day. No, I'd rather do that one thing that moves me, because it goes back to kind of like the 80-20 rule, doesn't it? Where we say that 80% of the results are a result of 20% of the actions. It's true in life. Now, the other way to identify what your priority is, it's usually the one that you avoid. It's usually the thing that you procrastinate. It's usually the thing that makes you the most uncomfortable. It makes the tough decisions or conversations that you have to have with people, or it's taking that action that's going to put in a lot of work, and you know that the significance of that. And that's why you avoid that. Because, for example, writing a book. And when I was writing my book, I knew that that could be pivotal in the trajectory of the career, the success that I was going to have. I knew the significance of that, or the potential significance of that. And so I avoided it for probably 5 years. Didn't put the keyboard out and make any time to write that book. It just in my head, I'm going to write this book about how to start businesses and scale businesses. And I knew that was very important. I knew that it is pivotal, but then you're also worried about, what if this blows up in my face? What if people laugh at my book? What if it's a dud and nobody buys it? So those are the kind of things that are going to keep you from doing it. So that's the significance and the priority. And guys, it played out exactly the way I'm telling you, because when I decided to write that book, it took me 5 months. I blocked out time on my calendar and I guarded that time, and I didn't let anything distract me. My to-do list on my whiteboard, actually, I erased all the stupid tasks and I wrote on there, it said, write fucking book. And anytime I was presented with something that was distracting, I go, what does my to-do list say? Oh, it says write fucking book. And that would snap me into the mindset right away that I need to be building the significance rather than being distracted. And I missed social things and birthdays and all kinds of things because I was heavily focused on what I needed to put out there. That could be the thing that I needed as a springboard to get me out there. And it's done that. It's done that. It did exactly the way I teach people now. It's like, those are the kind of things you have to look at. What is it that you're scared of? What is it that you're avoiding? What is that tough conversation that you're trying to get away from not having with somebody? What is that thing that you're not asking for? What is that skill set or that knowledge that you're avoiding because you know you need it, but you're not doing it? Those are the things that are probably going to be your priority.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's excellent advice, because when you're feeling that resistance or fear, that's definitely, or almost in all cases, the thing you should be doing. And I love what you described there. It's, success is about the results you get. It's not about how many items you check off your list or how many hours you put in to do it. And I always try to tell people, your clients aren't going to hire you and care about, oh, it took you 10 hours or 100 hours or 2 hours. What they care about is, did you fix my problem? And in a lot of senses, it doesn't matter if it took you 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days. They just want the problem fixed. And you're totally right. That's the big shift from employee mindset to being an entrepreneur, is like results focused, not activity focused. So I think that's excellent. And if you understand that, then you can then strategize your schedule and build around, like you said, the productive times and everything like that. So that's definitely excellent. What other things have you seen are like super common pitfalls or reasons why people don't take the first step into starting their side hustle or, getting into entrepreneurship? Because I think people think it's safer to be an employee, but I'll let you answer that. So.
Yeah, you and I know it's not safer to be an employee. That's an old wives' tale again. That goes back from generational legacy of people that have been working for corporations 20, 30 years. That was my parents. To them, the biggest fear in the world would be not to have a air quote steady job. And when you're unemployed, that's like horrific fear. And I remember being a kid when my dad would get laid off from his construction jobs, and he would come home and he would just like just terrible mindset, just very angry and upset. And I was thinking, like, is that really how I have to be as a man? Do I have to lose my job and come home and take it out on the kids and yell and just say how awful the society is and do that kind of stuff? Because I saw him do that. Construction, oil and gas, it happens a lot. I've been through 25 years oil and gas myself, been through 4 downturns, and 3 of those left me sitting on the bench. But I didn't take that same reaction as him. I just said, you know what can I do that's creative? First time I got laid off, I wrote my book. The second time I got laid off, I built a car that ended up on the cover of magazines. So when you understand that you can actually be productive and actually find the time, we're in a quarantine right now recording this.
Yep.
There's been 2 months of productivity time that most people haven't even capitalized on. And
Yeah.
I've built out my business and doing a lot of different things. I'm learning some new stuff, adding some more team members. I'm using this time. So most people just think that this is time off. And I get it. You need some time off. But guys, you got to be able to look at the things that you want to do and be results driven, just like Gabe mentioned. It's very critical that you think about what is it that you want to create in your life, that lifestyle that you want. If that's $100,000 a year, that's awesome. That's a great start. Go get that. Figure out how to do that without the job. The easiest way to do it is to find some kind of a product or service that you can do online that you can actually multiply while you're not awake. Everybody's got some kind of skill set or knowledge that can teach people or do things freelance. It doesn't take too many freelance gigs. If you're a graphic designer, if you're a copywriter, and these are all things you can learn. So don't tell yourself like, well, I'm not that. I'm not that. Nobody was that until they learned it. You just have to have some kind of an interest. If you want to learn how to build apps or code or build websites or any of those kind of things, these are things that you learn. These are things I had to learn myself. Nobody taught me. I went to school for engineering. They didn't teach me how to build websites. I did that on my own. I didn't learn how to do Photoshop. I did that on my own. Photography, did that on my own. So all the information is out there. You can learn from people like Gabe or myself and how to build businesses. But the one thing that keeps most people from building their business is they talk about the fear of failure, but that's a surface level excuse that's really just volleyed back and forth by people who aspire to be average. So it's not really the fear of failure, because we fail every single day. I guarantee it's only 10:30 in the morning here in Houston right now. Even by this early part of the day, several of you watching this or watching this on a replay have already failed at something this morning. Maybe you didn't eat properly, or maybe you skipped that workout, or maybe you slept in. We're used to failing. We're conditioned to fail. It's not a big deal. It's how we recover from failure that matters. So what are you really afraid of then if it's not the fear of failure? You're afraid of what other people are going to say about your failure. That's what it all boils down to. You're so worried about putting something out there, writing that book, starting that business, going on that fitness journey, whatever it is, you're so afraid of putting that out there because you're so worried about what these potential critics may say about you when you fail. And when you start to get to a point where you no longer care about the criticisms or the negative comments from people, you start to become more empowered and more confident to be able to take those risks, because you start to ask yourself, let me put the criticisms that I'm receiving into context of who the people are that are offering those things. Would I trade places with them? 99 times out of 10 or 100, you would say, nope, I wouldn't trade places with them. Would you take advice from those people? 9 times out of 10, no, you wouldn't take advice from those people. So why are you taking criticism from people you would not take advice from, or you wouldn't trade places with? Just realize that criticisms and naysayers and haters and things that you are trying to avoid by not failing, they don't matter. They really don't matter. And when you start to understand that their criticisms are more a reflection of them and what's wrong with them and the things that you're glowing and you're illuminating, you're highlighting the dark sides of them, it's not about you anymore. And when you start to understand that, you become far more empowered, far more courageous to be able to take those steps to do something and actually do them and call your shots. Because that's another phrase I was actually talking about in my group this morning. Somebody posted about how you're supposed to do things, silence and don't tell anybody until you got results. Like, guys, that is a bunch of bullshit. Bullshit. We see this meme that goes around, Gabe, that says, hustle hard in silence and let your results speak for you. Man, that is some bullshit. You know what that means? That means hustle hard in silence and you have an escape door and nobody's going to know if you quit. That's what that means. Because unless you've got real discipline and you've actually proven results time and time again, that isn't a convenient escape door that you're going to quit and nobody's ever going to know, which makes avoiding that fear of criticism again highly possible. So if you really want to hold yourself accountable and you really want to get results, but you don't necessarily have that strong discipline or that strong tendency to deliver results, put it out there. Put it out there. Go on to social media. We're on Facebook right now live. Go out there and go, you know what? I'm going to write this book on this. Or go create the thing. Guys, I need to lose 40 pounds. I'm going to start today. I need you to hold me accountable. I'm going to check in every single day and we're going to get through this. I just need you guys' support. Guys, you're going to have hundreds, if not dozens of people just coming out there to support you because you've called your shots. They want to hold you accountable. And until you start to get that internal discipline and drive to do that, rely on other people to support you and encourage you to do that. But you're not going to get that by hustling hard in silence.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I guess, to be honest, I never thought about that saying as being an escape door, because I mean, you, in a sense, like you and I actually do just go out and do it. And sometimes I tell people, sometimes I don't. But you're totally right about that. And it reminds me of something I heard, that when you make your goal super specific and you put it out there, that's when people are afraid, because then it's super clear if you're going to pass or fail, you're going to make it or you're not. And then it's a bunch of, accountability all of a sudden. And so getting super specific with goals is scary for that reason. But I would totally agree with you. Number one, don't listen to anybody that gives you, any crap about it, because nobody ever that has done what you want to do will knock you down for that. Like, you and I aren't gonna, if we see somebody that's like, I'm gonna start my business this month and in 90 days have customers or whatever, you and I who have done it aren't gonna say, you dumbass, you can't do that. We're gonna cheer them on. Whereas the people that, are stuck in their job or, don't understand it, they're the only ones that are gonna complain about that or give you a hard time. And it's, yeah, we deal with so much like fear around what people think, and end of the day, it really doesn't fucking matter. They're not going to be there anyway when you're done or when you're successful. And like you said, it is definitely illuminating their dark places. I love how you said that, because that's when people get uncomfortable, when you say, I'm going to step out and do something about this, or I'm going to change my life. And it's the real old crab pot analogy. You just put a bunch of crabs in a pot and they can never escape, because they always pull each other back down in. And I see people in that situation all the time. It's like, you got to get away from people like that are negative. You got to unfollow them, block them, unfriend them in the social media world. But I have made, some tougher choices over the years of family, friends, people that I have cut out of my life, because I can't have that anywhere near me and succeed. It's just, you can't have negativity and positivity in the same space, I don't think.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to cut off your family members if they're being negative or pessimistic about what your dreams are or what your duties are, because it's your life. Ultimately, it's not theirs. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that we seem to give a pass to people who are related to us. And we hear that stupid phrase again, blood is thicker than water. No, it's not. We all have better friends than we have better family members. Sometimes just because you're related to somebody doesn't give them a free pass to come in and trample on your dreams or talk negatively about you or get in your head and make you doubt yourself. You can block those people. You can unfollow them. You'll never see their stuff. And that's fine, because you can still go have Thanksgiving dinner with those people and they're still your family, regardless if they're on social media or with you or not. And honestly, I think a lot of people let too many people, even they perceive as friends, not true, because real friends aren't going to try to tear down your dreams. They're not necessarily going to support everything you do. They may even give you some insights or look at your blind spots to give you some feedback, which is critical, but it's all about how they say something versus what they say. So if somebody's really just being antagonistic or trying to tear you down, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious when people are being passive aggressive, trying to talk you down off of what you're trying to do. Get rid of those people, because I would rather have people that were direct and give you constructive feedback so you can thank them and move on, and you can take that advice or leave it based on the context of who they are and what have they achieved. Have they done what I'm doing? Do they have the same risk tolerance as I do? Have they really just had any courageous to be able to put themselves out there, start a business? Then if the answer is no to those, then don't take their advice. Just thank them. Thank you for that. And then be like, psh, psh, out one ear, out the other, because everybody's got 2 cents to give you. Sometimes you got to give them change.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of, I don't get a lot of that, fortunately, and I also just don't engage with it. But honestly, I find some of the things you post pretty funny about people that troll you. And I posted something because I'll talk about it because it's directly in line with what we're going to talk about. And then I have one more thing that you shared earlier that I want to touch on, and then we'll talk about where people can connect with you. But this, I posted something that said, ideas are great, but they don't matter until your customer pays you for them.
That's right.
And all real entrepreneurs that I know are like, duh, like, yes, I totally agree with that. I had some guy go on and, educate me in the comments about how you can't say that, look at all these examples. And he brought up these examples. I'm like, well, yeah, those are good examples because they led to the people paying.
An action, a tangible result.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I've been in many startups and ideas, matter more than customers paying. And I'm like, well, share an example. Cause I would love to learn more about this. Cause I'm always learning, period, end of story. Of course, there's no examples. And it's like a classic example, I do some quick searching, look the guy up, and like nothing, never heard of him, like doesn't exist on the entrepreneurial front. I'm not saying he might not have good ideas, but it's like results are what matter in business. And if you get focused on that and you realize that people pay for results, that's it, then you can get crystal clear. And so even, Tony and I, we have people come out and tell us how we're wrong, and that's great. And next, because once you do it, it works. So just don't let people that are idiots. I always say there's plenty of badasses behind the keyboard, and when you meet them face to face, they don't have a whole lot to say. And that's
true. That's the keyboard warriors.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Think about this, guys. Millions of people around this world die every single day with great ideas. That cemetery that you pass by on your commute on a daily basis, filled with buried great ideas. Most people walk around patting themselves on the back about all these great ideas that they have. And maybe you see these people at work and they're at the water cooler and they're going, man, I got this great idea. It's going to make $1 million. And they're always telling you about these ideas. And you say, why don't you go do that? Why don't you go figure that out? Well, it's someday I will, guys. Ideas don't mean shit. Don't give yourself any credit for good ideas unless you actually take some steps to make those reality, because until you take some actions to back up those ideas, they don't mean shit. And you're going to be another person with a headstone that's buried with your good ideas.
Not directly on point, but there's a really funny movie with Jack Black in it called Envy. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
You may enjoy it. It's like the employee to the entrepreneur, and it's a Jack Black movie, so it's it's bad, but it's pretty funny, and it reminds me of that. One last thing you talked about that I think is super important to touch in, because I think this is probably why, even though this is our first face-to-face conversation, I think this is why we really found an affinity for each other, because I think we just noticed this about each other. But you talked about aggressive patience. Can you talk about that? That super resonated with me. I love that.
So I practice what I call aggressive patience, like you talked about. And most people hear that and they go, what the hell does that even mean? Aggressive patience? Because just looking at those words individually, they almost seem like they're opposite ends of the spectrum. And the thing about it is you got to be really aggressive with your actions, but you have to be patient for the results. Most people are aggressive with actions, but they're really aggressive waiting those results. They feel like they're entitled to some kind of results. And they think that, Gabe is doing this, Tony's doing this. I know that kind of stuff too. I look better than them. I sound better than them, whatever they're telling themselves, but they're not getting those results. And the problem is that they quit. They do it for hard. They go hard. Most people do something really hard for 1 or 2 months, and that's average. And then they quit because they're not getting results. They weren't patient to get those results. And they feel like, well, I've got the knowledge and I've got the experience and I've got the appearance and I've got the communication. I've got the cool website. I've got they're bargaining to themselves why they don't have the results. And so when they don't get the results in a short amount of time, they start to just really feel deflated, and they feel like, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe there's something missing here. Maybe it's that it factor that's elusive and I can't figure out what it is. And they just give up on themselves. And that's unfortunate, guys. It's really unfortunate. I hate to hear that, because every single one of you watching this or listening to this, you have the capability to go get what you want in life. But the problem is most of you won't make it past that 6 to 12 month hurdle of putting in the daily effort consistently to get the result. And then you start to get the reactions. And every business that I've started, every company that I've helped my clients start, 6 to 12 months is the minimum investment to just put in daily work consistently to build your brand, build your recognition, get your word out there, get your product well known. And then and only then is when you start to see traction. It's not uncommon to see that first 1 to 2 years of a company just flatlining on the profit, maybe even losing a little year after year, because the founder believes in the product or the service so much that he just stays on point, or she just stays on point and just keeps delivering that value, just getting it out there. And then all of a sudden it's like that hockey stick we talk about, where it's really not really growing. And then all of a sudden it just blows up like in one move. That's the reality of business. You could get discovered by somebody that's influential or whatnot, and they just share your story, your product, and boom, it's like you're on another level, 3 levels up sometimes. And that's the kind of thing that you have to show up consistently to do, to be able to do that. Most people just give up too soon. Dude, it's so important. You got to be super aggressive with your actions, outwork everybody. If that's your thing, if you got a strength of outworking people, use that to your advantage, but do it for a 6 to 12 months minimum. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, hey, I want to start that business, I want to start that podcast, I want to write that book, I want to do some webinars, whatever it is you want to start, something that's out of your norm. If you're not willing to do it for 6 to 12 months for free, and put on work every single day, then you don't deserve the results. And that's the tough love. I'm not saying that to be hateful. You don't deserve the results, because you're going to run into guys like Gabe and myself and thousands of other people who will do that, and will do that for free, and will show up every single day, and will create value, and we'll do it with a smile, because we know that the purpose is more important than the short-term gains, because we know that that's how you build long-term businesses. You don't do things in 2 months. You don't get a different business card every 6 months because the first thing didn't work out for you, because you didn't make it a year. So put in that work consistently every day, create the value, show up even if you feel like nobody's watching, because that's the test. If you don't pass that test, you don't deserve the results.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. That's definitely, that's the simple, and I didn't say easy, I said simple key to success.
No, there's no easy. Easy is like, just delete that word from your
Right.
vocabulary.
Yep. And when you just show up consistently like that, that's what gets you moving. And then also, just so everybody knows, I'm sure Tony's experienced this too, like you can be cruising along and have put in the year or 2 or 3 years, and you can just lose everything. And that's not an excuse to stop. You got to start over and keep investing. And it's like, when you realize that it's such a long game in entrepreneurship, then you can let the pressure off of thinking, oh, I got to go from 0 to, hero in the next 30 days. And you can just be consistent and keep working at a pace that works for you, because we talked about, your time management and your patterns that work for you and all these different things. If you just find something you can consistently do, then you'll be fine. I hear people talk about building their business, being the entrepreneur, providing the service, and trying to talk to like 50 to 100 people a day. And if you can do that, that's great for you. But in reality, if you can build your business, provide the service, and you can be super consistent in having 5 conversations with new people a day, you'll blow all those, noisy people out of the water that say, do this and go, I'll do this crazy stuff. You just need consistency over time. And that's what I just really love about what you've talked about, Tony, and especially what you talked about there with aggressive patience. I'm going to tell people about that. I like that line. So awesome. So I really appreciate you joining us today, Tony. This has been fantastic. Is there anything you want to offer people, and where can they find you?
Best way to follow me is here on Facebook. Just do a follow, or you can go to my website, 365driven.com, and you'll find links. I got a podcast, Top Rated Entrepreneurship Podcast. A lot of big name guests out there. Come find me on iTunes or Spotify or on the big major channels. And other than that, thank you for having me on. It's been fun. And if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments and tag me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have. So thank you for watching this. If you got any questions, we can jump in and answer those, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on, Tony. And we will definitely have you back soon. All right.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.